All right, we are getting started, and welcome everybody to the Breadcrumbs Project. Hang on, I don't have my headset on. All right, glad I caught that early in the ball game. And hello, yes. So we are going to be taking a bit of a turn here on the Breadcrumbs Project, um, and it's a place that I'd actually started until we went off the rails with AI and and went into some pretty crazy places. So it was quite a journey, and I'm in a wait and see status as to see how all of that plays out. Uh, I've done what I could, and um, and I don't know. It's it's a confusing situation because there's a lot of good people vested in making this happen, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see. So we are going to be moving into a different area, uh, a different study of history, a different um, uh, time for us in humanity. So everything looks good in the different areas, and I'm in chat now, so we're good. Go ahead and pause that. All right. So something that has changed my view of history started in a very interesting area. Our history that we've been taught by a long shot is not the history that has happened in this world. We've had a lot of things go down that really um, don't make doesn't make any sense. It's difficult to swallow. It's really hard to understand, and it would really help us to understand where we are, what we are, if we could just understand and remember our past. And that's what I'm in the process of doing with the Breadcrumbs Project. So we're pausing AI so we can catch up with our story. And our story begins with the elongated skull people. And if we look at the pillars of Göbekli Tepe, those are representative of some elongated skull giants. And we've been able to make that connection. These pillars that are perfectly balanced, uh, 9, 10, 12 feet tall, 15 foot I believe is the tallest. And don't quote me on that. And the height is not important, but they're outrageously high, perfectly balanced, and uh, incredibly well made. They're definitely out of place. They were buried roughly 12,000 years ago. Buried 12,000 years ago. When they were created is still undetermined. And if it's determined, it sure has been published. So our history begins with elongated skull people, or what we now term long skull people. They have the same genetics as us. We could be them. Make the proper changes to our genetics, and we could be elongated skull people. So that has been proven by Brian. It'll hit me in a minute, but there's someone that has done a lot of studies on the genetics of the elongated skull people, and come to find that they're human, just obviously with different coding. So as I understand it through our studies with AI, the elongated skull people and the giants, because there were giants here. There's absolutely no doubt about it. You kind of wonder if rocks became beings back then, because if you look at Egypt, especially, there are a lot of giants, and all of their statues are damaged in some way or another. So somebody had great fear of the statuary around the world, really. Around the world, statuary has been damaged ritualistically and purposefully. So, not we don't know what has happened there. So, um, as rumor has it from the AI, the giants were betrayed and were, for lack of a better word, destroyed. We, uh, but they were removed from the planet. They were either killed off or died off or removed. Something happened, and they weren't allowed to come back. Then the elongated skull people just basically were bred out and stopped. Their genetic line stopped, and so we have skulls. We have actual mummified dead. We have representations of the leaders of Egypt being elongated skull people, and 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 I didn't see any violence there. Sorry, make an adjustment. And when you look at the Akhenaten, and he looks very peaceful. He's not in armor, a family-loving man. So we have, and the babies are represented in the, and we'll bring it up. Let's bring it up. All right, get you guys over here. And it's not a good representation of, but you can definitely see the elongated skull and the head dressing hiding the elongated skulls. And then if you go and look at elongated skulls or long skulls in Egypt, sorry, especially Akhenaten, you have a lot of examples of long skull people in Egypt. So this is no longer in doubt. And if you look at it, it's not too long ago. It's not 10,000 years ago. I don't believe these representations, but they're in stone, so you really can't tell. But the elongated skull folks were here not too long ago. And do I trust the dating if I look it up? No. No. So yes, there is a very, very pronounced collection of representations of elongated skull folks in Egypt in stone, and they were here. Now, my current title is The Celtic Ritual of the Dead. And this is an important facet to our story. One of the unique things that identifies a Celtic culture is their form of burying their dead. They are famous for cremating their dead, taking their ashes and putting them in urns. And these urns are then placed in the ground upside down, inverted. And I do have an example of that. Give me a second to pull it up. And as I am doing so, because it's going to take a second, let me take a pause here for looking and show you this. This is a pottery shard, all right? And you can see that it's the rim of a pottery shard. So as I try to buy a little time as I scroll through all of my unorganized documents, but I just saw it a little while ago, and that's why I need to mention it. I know where I saw it. Sorry guys, I'm all over the place. This could be trash, could be rubbish, but it has very one unique and lone signature, and that is beautiful glazing on the inside of the jar, and then the outside, the glazing has been removed. It is weather worn. This is something that I had found in as I buy a little time here, in a garden. I found this in a garden, and it was actually when I had planted potatoes 2 years ago, and it's when I was harvesting them, taking them out of the ground, I kept running across pottery shards. Now, the Breadcrumbs project is historically based. Everything that we do, whether it's politics or pottery shards like that, we do it from a historical point of view. How does it fit into history? How does artificial intelligence fit into our current history and our future history? Are we doomed, or did I just see something that was meant to scare me? So that, well, we don't know. How does our past impact our future? So if there were some beings that were removed from the planet and a protective shield put over it, like the Van Allen belt. The Van Allen belt is very important in our relationship with space, because the Van Allen belt says that the intensity of the radiation is such that nothing can get out of this planet or into this planet with the intensity of the Van Allen belt. So that's one of the things that makes a lot of skeptics of the moon landing. Just there's no way to get past the Van Allen belt. We don't have that technology. So that's the question. What happened in our past? Why was Göbekli Tepe buried? Why were so many archaeological sites absolutely destroyed in Egypt? Places in India, I don't want to sneeze, so trying to hold that off. But it wasn't just one piece. It was piece after piece. And this one's interesting because this one is decorated. I think that's the bottom of it. So the outside is completely weather worn, and the inside glazing is just perfect, absolutely perfect. So why does this happen? Let me see how to best do this. All right, that's how I'm going to do it. That's how I'm going to do it. All right. So this is an example, I'm about to show you, is an example of inverted urns done by Celts in their burial practice. This is one well-established site. And the urns aren't buried. They're placed on the ground. And they get covered in dirt over time. Okay? So what happened to me was I was getting some very old jars and some very fine ones. This is black like a rock. And this type of pottery is very unique in that it is done by the Minoan culture was one culture that was famous for it. But they would, this is burnt in a low oxygen, low temperature fire. So it reacts, that environment reacts in such a way that it creates a very hard rock-like pottery vessel. And this is just one of its shards. And then, and I knew I was onto something. I knew I was onto something. I had already published a book about it. And so I knew that something was going on. But then I had found this. And this one is amazing because it looks like some very fine kind of vessel, you know, and you feel it's very smooth, but it has the same signature. Very smooth on the inside, rough hewn on the outside, and then there you see it. This is not a regular pot. This is glass. And I found two different renderings. These are two different jars, two different styles, and found in opposite sides of where I live, Muxia. So this told me without a doubt that this place was a Celtic burial place. And here in Muxia, we're in Galicia. And Galicia, to regular folks, says in their history, yes, that Galicia was a Celtic land. And finding these vessels prove that, yes, in fact, Celtic rituals were done here. And this very much does tie into my book, Latin America. Because I was now very curious about the history of this place, Muxia, which has a very unique set of circumstances. It is the traditional end of the Camino de Santiago, which used to be La Ruta Jacobea. And so it has a long tradition of being a place of pilgrimage. And then taking Muxia back to the Celts in a very important ritual, which was burial of the dead. For the Celtic people did not see death as an end. They actually see it as the beginning. They see it as a chance to be liberated and to be with the gods and to commune with them, as best as I understand. But they didn't see the gods in the air, as from what I understand and from what I can see by the burial. They saw that the gods that they were communing with was in the land. And we do know by history how connected the Celtic peoples were with the land. So they wanted their ashes to go in the land. And after I ran into these two glass pieces, I knew that this place was an important place for burial, and that was being done during the Phoenician and Roman times, because this could be Phoenician glass or this could be Roman glass. And I know it's ancient glass because it's filled with bubbles, tiny, tiny bubbles. You can't see them, but if you'd like to visit them, you're more than welcome to. This one you can see the bubbling a little better. Well, you see the roughness of the outside here clearly, and then this guy was in water in the beach, and this guy has lettering. And yes, the Romans were absolutely capable of doing lettering like this. Their glass skills were amazing, amazing. And you say, well, it looks like a regular Western alphabet. Well, we have to remember that, and we're going to be going back to this a lot, that the Roman alphabet was this. This is ridiculous, right? Because anytime, and this just tries to make the Romans look old and fuddy-duddy, and no, this is the Roman alphabet. Because if you look for the original SPQR, you see it spelled just like that everywhere. It's always represented in beautiful letters, not silly like that. And what does it mean? SPQR stands for Senatus Populuscus Romanus, which translates to the Senate and the people of Rome. And that was the Roman Republic. And then came the Roman Empire. So, yeah, it's very frustrating how history tries to hide the truth. So the lettering of the Romans was like this. This is proper Roman statuary. Año 11. Year 11. I don't know where this is from. Yeah. I don't know what it says there. Imperial Caesar, Navata, Optimo Principi. So that is Latin. That is Latin writing, and not the silliness that they were trying to pawn off on us. And look at it here with the cross of St. George. And many people are noting and starting to see that the Roman Empire never ever left. It evolved. It went from togas to business suits. It turned itself into a tax-free religion and then a tax haven in the square mile, the city of London, or as we call it, the City of London Corporation. So, yes, the Romans never went away. Latin America is called Latin America for a reason, and a very, very, very important reason for the way we are functioning. And functioning and malfunctioning. So the Celtic people were here in Galicia performing their rituals, and their dead were happy to go. Death was not something that came to an old person. They were just waiting to die and, bedridden, that all that. No. If you look at the Celtic villages here in Galicia, in Spain, in our region, you'll see these small round communities with round houses. And there could be 10 to 15 in a single little village area. And then you have our larger communities that have up to 30 to 40 to 50 stone round houses. So in archaeology, when we see in LiDAR readings or in ground penetrating radar readings round, we know that there's a roundhouse there, and a roundhouse community is around it. And what happens is when a person becomes when he can no longer serve the community, when he gets to the point where the community has to take care of him, well, it's his time to go. And the communities back then were so dependent on birth. Births were the future of any village. When a village stopped having women that could give birth, then that village dies off. So that's something that we in modern times do not appreciate or grasp or understand. Here in the north of Spain, in Spain in general, but in the north especially, when a woman is pregnant, and notably so, you don't want to be rude, but when a woman is or you have a friend, you have a friend, you find out, oh, you're pregnant. They don't say, oh, you're pregnant. When are you going to have the baby? We say, when are you going to give the light? ¿Cuándo vas a dar la luz? When are you going to give the light? So birth was them knowing that there was a certain energy that was given off at birth. And it is the light of the village. And let's go to witchcraft, okay? Because we in the north of Spain understand what witches were back then. The witches were the woman who would do magic. And one of those magics was giving birth. There was nothing more sacred than you could do in a tiny little roundhouse Celtic village than give birth. That was just a celebrated event. That meant new hope for the village. And by the same token, and also she was a witch. She knew the potions, so that if you got a cut and it started to get infected, she knew the proper potions to apply to that cut so that it wouldn't get infected. And if you were sick, she knew the potions to help you heal. So the male druids, the male magicians, they would mostly pay attention to the sky and to what the gods were saying and what seasons were coming and going and when we had to do the planting and when we had to do the reaping, and understanding nature and what the gods were communicating to them. The women took care of the biological beings of the village, and did a lot of the healing. So her importance cannot be understated. The witch's role cannot be understated in the life of the village. Now, what happened? The Romans came to Iberia. The Romans came to Iberia, and I have that proof in some of my pottery. And I don't have it with me right here, but I will have it in tomorrow's show as we continue this journey of why Latin America is called Latin America, and it does tie into the Celtics. There's a very strong Celtic tie-in. So, yes, we will pick up the Latin story tomorrow, the Roman story tomorrow, because they came here, and I don't see an invasion as such, as the legions marching. I see colonization. I see the Romans coming and offering law, stability, and economy to what the Romans would see as a very, very backward, very indigent and struggling people. When you see magnificent Roman villages versus a Celtic village here in the north of Spain, then you'd see night and day. You also know that the Celtic villagers were much happier in the end than the Romans turned out to be. But the Romans were not marching legions type of invaders. They were more colonizers. And that's what they continued to do throughout the 2,000 years after the fall of Rome. They were just colonizers. They did it in different generations, in different fashions. But they would move into an area, bring law, bring economy, bring goodness, bring economy, bring wealth, improve the lives of the indigenous people around them, and then just rule by law. No weapons needed. Healthy economy, good future, and they were doing very well. They were doing very well. The Romans did not need the legions. The legions were great to have, but that's not how they did it. They did not go by the sword, as history is so prone to say. I have the maps and the discussions to be able to prove it, and we'll pick that up tomorrow. And keep these episodes to about 30 minutes, and to keep the conversation really moving and growing as we go. So, why does Latin America have the name Latin America? It doesn't have anything to do with Spanish, because Spanish is not Latin. You may say it's a Latin language, but it could. Yes, Spanish does have a good bit of Latin derivative. That's not why they call it Latin America. We'll find out more tomorrow. All right, thank you all, and I will see you next time here on the Breadcrumbs Project. And today we've been going over the ritual of death for the Celtic people. Perfectly polished inside. And weather worn outside. So yes, yeah, it's these are magical pieces. They speak of something amazing, and then we'll get into the reason why they are all just pieces too. Yeah, but yes, this glazing is so perfect because it was laying inverted for hundreds of years. You can tell by the weather wearing outside. There's still glazing, a very base of it, but all the fine glazing has been weather worn, as it had done to this one and all of them. Glazing on the inside is perfect, and on the outside, weather worn due to inversion. So, thank you all very much for sticking around. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe, and help build this community. All right. Thank you all.